Hey guys, welcome back to another video. Today we will be talking about the latest polls coming out of the 2024 presidential race. Well, on average they are showing who they are saying will win, because we have a lot of new surprising polls. I mean, some of these polls are extremely interesting. A lot of states that we didn't anticipate would be close at all are now becoming very, very, very competitive. So just a lot going on when you look at the numbers. They might not be 100% accurate, but it is always important to look at the numbers to see how the race is changing throughout the election. So I do have all of the safe states filled in, safe or almost safe states. These are the states where we know, oops, I forgot Virginia. These are the states where we know we won't have an upset or anything like that. You know, we know how all these states are going to vote for sure. But the states that are not filled in, these are the states we will be characterizing on the electoral map when we look at all these polls. So we've got the 2020 results just for comparison, just to see, why these results matter. If they do vote the way that the polls are indicating, how that would be different from 2020. We'll look at that for most states. And then, of course, we do have all the latest polls from the 2024 election to see where we are on average. Now, this is an average of polls for each state. This is not just the latest poll. I don't really get why people do that, because it's not as efficient as using the average of polls, which does give you a better picture, because the latest poll could very well be very much an outlier. So with that being said, let's get started. We will start with, we'll just go in alphabetical order, I suppose. We'll start with, we'll just go down the list here of the competitive states. So first off, we have a very competitive state, very much a battleground state in 2024 that both candidates want, that being Arizona. And what you see here is that Kamala Harris has taken the lead in Arizona, a huge victory for her campaign. If this does hold up, she currently leads the state by 0.6%. Now, this is a major change from just a few days ago. This is from August 4th, 12 days ago. Trump was ahead by 2.2% on average. That's a very healthy margin for Arizona. Now, polls are saying that Harris will keep it and actually expand on Joe Biden's margin of victory there back in 2020. So Arizona, we are going to put in the tilt column for Kamala Harris, since it is less than a 1% margin. So now we move on to the state of Florida, which is becoming increasingly competitive, and this is new. They do give us an average of the polls, and this is still in Trump's favor. It is still 4.6%, but from a few weeks ago, it has become a lot more competitive. You see, Trump was ahead by 7, by 6, and now he's only ahead by 2 in some of the latest polls. But on average, he does expand on his 2020 margin, but Florida does stay a lean state for the Republicans. And then we move on to a very critical battleground state, Georgia. It only voted for Joe Biden by 0.2%. And in the latest polls, Donald Trump is ahead by 0.1%. It is just about even, but Donald Trump, with a new poll from the Telegraph, which gives him a 2-point victory here, he has taken the lead. Just days ago, Harris was ahead by 0.2. Now Trump is ahead by the slimmest of margins, literally the slimmest of margins, 0.1%. It really does not get much closer than that. So now let's move on to our next state. That would be the state of Maine. So we're looking at the at-large vote, because the 2nd congressional district and the 1st congressional district are not very important. These are the 2nd. We see in the latest polls, they don't give us an average, but the 2 latest polls have Harris ahead by 9 and by 8. So both of those results do fall under the likely margin. Now, that's 8.5% on average. Biden won it by 9.1. So Harris is almost matching so far Biden's 2020 numbers. That's exactly what she needs to do, considering that Joe Biden did win in 2020. Next up, we have Michigan, where Kamala Harris has taken an impressive lead in the state in polling. She is ahead by 2.9%. That is where she wants to be. Joe Biden won the state by 2.8, so she's expanding on Joe Biden's margin of victory back in 2020. So, that's exactly where she wants to be in a critical battleground state like that. So Michigan does go lean for Kamala Harris. That is critical in her path to victory. Next up, we have Minnesota. Minnesota, they don't give us an average, but we do have 3 of the latest polls. She's ahead by 5, by 10, and then by 3. So on average, with that plus 10 poll, that's huge for her. That would be way expanding on Biden's margin in 2020 of 7.1. With that margin, it looks like she is at about 6% ahead of Trump on average, which does make Minnesota fall into the likely column for the Democratic Party. Next up, we have one congressional district in Nebraska. You might see that there is one congressional district blank, because that means that only one of the districts are competitive. They split their electoral vote by district. And we see in the latest poll, Biden and Trump are even, but when you look at all the latest polls, so we have even, we can disregard that one, I guess. And then after that, it was Biden that's Joe Biden before Harris was in the race. So we really only have this one even poll, or even this was Biden versus Trump, my mistake. So we actually have no polling coming out of Nebraska's 2nd District, which is interesting to me because it is still somewhat competitive, I thought. But we'll just put that in Kamala Harris's column, considering that Joe Biden won it by 6.6. I fully expect Kamala Harris to win by somewhere around that same margin. So next up, we do have the state of Nevada. In Nevada, so for the longest time, it was even. You see there, it was exactly even. And then I think just today, it showed me before, Donald Trump is ahead by 0.3 because there was a new poll from Trafalgar. Some don't trust Trafalgar, but whatever. Trump was ahead by 3 in that poll, and it puts him up by 0.3 statewide. So Nevada does fall into the Trump column by a very small, or very slim tilt margin. You see, I've never done one of these with so many states being in the tilt margin, so you could just see how many of these states are incredibly close. In New Hampshire, this was the first indicator that Harris was going to do much better than Joe Biden. We see that in the latest polls, Harris is ahead by 6, by 5, by 6, by 7. Looks like the average is about 6%, which is basically the margin that Biden won by, 7.4, just almost there. So she is matching Biden's 2020 numbers. In New Mexico here, we only have one Harris versus Trump poll, and there's Harris plus 6. That makes my job easy. Not really much of a surprise. Biden won it by 10, so I could see her doing some 3 points worse than Biden in 2020. Next up, we have North Carolina, a state that is becoming much, much, much more competitive. We have the latest poll, or some of the newest polls, showing Harris actually ahead in this pretty reliably Republican state typically. Harris is ahead by 2, by 1. However, there has been a flurry of new polls since then. Now Trump has taken the lead in 3 of them, and then it is even in the most recent ones. So ultimately, that in the average puts Donald Trump at a 0.9% victory. But once again, another tilt state in this election just makes it so much closer and so much harder to predict, because these tilt states can really go either way. All these fall within the margin of error. Next up, we have Pennsylvania, where Kamala Harris is ahead by 1.6%. On average, that's exactly what she needs for a campaign. 1.6% is more than the margin from 2020. Biden won the state by 1.2%. She's now doing 0.4% better. Pennsylvania, it looks like more and more that she needs Pennsylvania if she will win the election. And, out of the 7 battleground states, Pennsylvania has the most electoral votes at 19. So, obviously, she wants to add that 19 to her column, and it helps so much. That puts her at 258 electoral votes to Donald Trump and J.D. Vance's 200, so she only needs 12 more electoral votes to claim victory. So now let's move on to the state of, let's see, I might have missed some before, but let's go to Texas now. A state that went to Trump, by 5.6% in 2020. And it really wasn't on anyone's radar. It does look a little bit more competitive than since Biden was in the race. See, against Biden, Trump was ahead by 11, by 9, by 10 in the most recent polls. And now he is only ahead by 7, but we only have one poll. So 7 is where I expect it to fall, slightly more to the right than 2020, but still not all that competitive. Definitely not closer than 2020. In Virginia now, this is interesting because we only have 2 polls from Virginia, and in both of them, Donald Trump is ahead. We see one of them includes Robert F. Kennedy, or both of them include Robert F. Kennedy Jr. There is no difference in them. But in one, Donald Trump is ahead by 4%. In the other, Donald Trump is ahead by 1%. So on average, Donald Trump does win Virginia somewhere around 2 points. You know, if I doubt this will happen, obviously. We absolutely need more polling from Virginia. I mean, these are pretty old polls to July 14th through the 15th. So these are very old polls. These are a month ago, and we don't have any new polls coming from Virginia. I guess probably because we expect it to fall in Kamala Harris's column, and it's not much of a battleground anymore. So this race has absolutely changed in Virginia. I doubt these polls will hold up. Virginia went to Joe Biden by 10% in the last election. So seeing it go to Donald Trump over Kamala Harris, highly doubt that it will happen. You know, it being more Republican than North Carolina, Georgia. So that's definitely an outlier, but this video is all the latest polls from each state. So that's a huge boost for Donald Trump is if, he's going through this election scenario looking at all these polls. But Wisconsin and Ohio are left. Kamala Harris would need both of them to win the election. So let's see where they stand. In the state of Wisconsin, we see that Kamala Harris is ahead by 3%. That's absolutely something that she wants to see. Wisconsin voted for Joe Biden by 0.6 in 2020. So Wisconsin going to her, she definitely needs that inner path to victory. Now, typically, these 3 states would already give her victory, but she is losing Virginia here. So Virginia will throw everything off, but Wisconsin, really important if she were to win, a state that both campaigns are targeting. Now, I did forget Ohio here, and in the latest polls, there have only been 2 polls, and Donald Trump leads by 9.5% on average, so it is a likely state for him, not much of a surprise there. So in these latest polls, Donald Trump pulls off a very narrow victory of 270 electoral votes. Kamala Harris is at 268. Now, Virginia, again, throws everything off. If you put Virginia in Kamala Harris's column, this is where more I expect the result, the actual election result, to land. I probably think Kamala Harris wins around 281 electoral votes, Donald Trump at 257. But if you are including these polls from a month ago, that I guarantee you are extremely inaccurate considering, everything about Virginia. Again, it voted for Biden by 10% in the last election. Highly doubt that will hold up. Definitely not happening in my prediction. But if you do look at those polls, Virginia would go red and it would hand Trump victory. So it all comes down to Virginia. If you want to believe those polls, sure, Trump wins. But I probably have it going to Harris. But again, that's not the purpose of this video. So thank you all for watching this video. If you enjoyed, make sure to subscribe down below. We're trying to get to 10,000 subscribers before Election Day. So if you could help me out with that, that would be great. But again, thank you all for watching, and I will see you all for the next video.